Welcome to the Purity for Life podcast, episode 145, Achieving Milestones on the Recovery Journey, Part 1. For more information on this podcast and other great content, visit purityforlife.me. Hey everyone, welcome to the Purity for Life podcast. Thanks so much for watching and listening. Hope your 2016 has kicked off well and you're having a great year. I'm excited to talk this week about the topic of milestones in our recovery. Milestones are so important. Milestones are things that we need to really remember and to really take note of in our recovery. And so you might be asking the question, if you're walking in recovery right now from porn addiction, some kind of sexual addiction, what is a milestone? Depending on where you're at, maybe you've heard that term before, but I want to explore it for the next couple weeks on the Purity for Life podcast. So, kind of a basic understanding to kind of start off this conversation, and then we're going to go a little bit deeper into some real kind of specific areas. But what are milestones? If you're a person who is in year one, maybe you're in 6 months in, year one, year two, milestones are so incredibly important for you. Just as important for you as if you're in year 5, year 6, year 7. Milestones are always important for us, no matter where we're at in our recovery journey. So what is a milestone? I like to think about milestones this way. Milestones, a milestone is marking a significant step in your recovery. It's marking a significant step in your recovery. So it is very much an accomplishment. It's an achievement. It's remembering a specific, win or success, or just something that you learned, something that kind of really clicked. The light bulb went off, right? And it's a monumental moment in your recovery where you really take a step forward and a step deeper into your recovery journey. And this doesn't have to just be centered on your behavior. I think it's really important that we, and when I say behavior, I mean like sobriety, how long it's been since you looked at porn or masturbated or acted out or whatever, or lusted or fantasized, whatever. Milestones can serve as kind of like guideposts along the way in your recovery. And like I just alluded to earlier, just a second ago, they're not just about our behavior. They're not just about the behavior of, abstaining from pornography. They're so much more than that. And so the way I like to kind of think about milestones is that you can look back and you can see the progress that you've made. And this helps you to kind of keep leaning in, if you will, into your recovery. That's a term that I use a lot with the guys that I work with, leaning in. I like to think in our recovery that we're on a journey, but in a lot of ways we're in a battle, and it's an area that we really need to, our recovery journeys are not an area that we need to just kind of sit back and be on the defense. We need to always constantly be on the offense. And again, so important that we're leaning into our recovery. And milestones help us to do that because, again, we can see the areas that we've grown in. We can see the areas that we have, found freedom in along the way. God knows that there is enough challenge when it comes to recovery, and recovery is hard. There's a lot of work that goes into recovery, and there's a lot of ways and a lot of areas that it feels like we're climbing an uphill battle, we're fighting an uphill battle. That when we're able to look back, see those milestones, the areas that we have grown in, the areas that we've kind of conquered and achieved and learned something in, it's really refreshing. Helps us to kind of keep walking this journey because it is very much a long-term journey. So again, milestones are about more than just behavioral improvements. Okay, milestones apply to the whole person's growth, and that's a really important concept that you understand. It's not just about the behavior, and I know guys in the past, I've known men that just kind of want to clean the behavior up, and they want to kind of sweep the behavior underneath the rug, and they want to move on with their life. And it's about so much more than that. It's about so much more than just your behavior. It's milestones apply to the whole person's growth. And we're going to talk in just a second about what does the whole person look like. So we need to remember that recovery from porn addiction isn't just about the modification of our behavior. And so I want to challenge you for a second to stop and think. Stop for a second, and I want you to think about the milestones in your recovery journey that you've already achieved. So you might need to pause this podcast, stop the video, or stop, hit your stop the audio, hit the podcast, and just really think and reflect. What are some areas that I have grown in? What are some milestones that I've already achieved? Some areas that I found victory in that I can literally set a post in the ground, that I can set a marker and say, man, this was a huge revelation to me, or this was an area that I went from, I went from A to B. I went from this area of growth. I went from, being this strong to, finding a deeper strength in this area. So think about that. And if you need to pause the podcast, go ahead and come right back. But what are some of those areas that you can think about? It's really, really important that you reflect on what those areas are. And so, in kind of wrapping up just introduction a little bit, I want to use a little material, and I do thank him ahead of time for this, but I want to touch on some material here from Jeff Fisher's 21-day Purity Jumpstart workbook that he just released. Let me just real quickly show this to you. If you're watching the video, you can see this, but if you're listening, you can kind of go back. But this is the 21-day Purity Jumpstart. This is from Jeff Fisher, who is a friend and brother of mine. There he is right there. Good-looking guy, right? And this is a fantastic workbook that Jeff recently put out, helping men to get a really great start to their recovery journeys. And this is not the 21-day end-all be-all to recovery. This is just simply a 21-day jump start to get you rolling and get you walking in the right direction with some great practical steps and principles. So taking some material from here, and just as we touch on, the whole person. What does the whole person look like in recovery? And so I want to encourage you, and again, this is from Jeff's book here, to chart your progress in a better way. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean, instead of just thinking about recovery as in, okay, it's been 2 days since I've looked at porn. It's been 5 days since I've looked at porn. It's been, 20 days since I've looked at porn, or, I haven't masturbated in 24 hours, and it's all external. It's all behavioral, right? I want to encourage you to chart your progress. That's the way Jeff kind of in his book kind of writes this, to chart your progress in a better way. What progress have you made in each one of these areas? Again, we're thinking about the whole person here, the whole person. So number one is emotional. And this is in the area of our feelings, our beliefs, our dreams, our reflections of our heart, our desires. I don't know about you, but in my life, in my recovery journey of the last 7 years, my emotions have gone through a recovery of their own. And I've learned what it means to feel again, to really love, to feel pain, to be able to empathize. And I've been able to really embrace my emotions. And believe me, this is an area out of my whole recovery journey, of all these areas we're getting ready to talk about, that I still at times struggle with, and I'm still learning how to handle my emotions in a very healthy way so that I don't, God forbid, go down a path where, acting out might be an option, or there might be some fantasy, or there might be lust. All right, so number one is emotional. What progress have you made with your emotions in the emotional arena? Number two is relational. So the way you relate with other people, how has that grown in your life? Has that grown at all? Have you been able to relate to people in a healthy way? Have you been able to not objectify the opposite sex? What impact has your recovery journey taken and meant for your relational life towards your spouse, towards your children, towards your coworkers, towards your family? What if you're walking a genuine walk and a genuine comeback, if you will, and a genuine recovery journey, your relational life should be impacted, and you should be growing and wanting to grow in this area as well. So number 2 is relational. Number 3 is spiritual, and that's connecting with God and others who love God. So spiritually, what has your recovery journey uncovered? Have you deepened your relationship with Jesus? Right? Have you grown in your faith and your trust and your joy and your dependence upon Christ to be your strength? Because ultimately, I believe He is the one that sets us free. And so spiritually, what progress have you made in your spiritual life, in your intimacy with God, as you've attempted to walk in healing and walk in recovery? The next area is sexual. This is a pretty obvious area, right? But how you understand sexual is this: how you understand and express your maleness and femaleness. So expressing yourself sexually, how has that? How have you grown from that? How have you improved in that area? Do you have a healthy understanding of sexuality as you've come out of pornography addiction, or as you're trying to come out of pornography addiction? Are you able to have a healthy view of sexuality? The next area is mental, right? Mentally. This is in our thinking, right? And so this covers the areas of education, understanding, reflection, critical thinking. So how is your thinking? How is your reflecting? What are your thoughts telling you in recovery? Do you feel like you're growing in that area? Or do you struggle day after day after day, moment after moment with your thoughts? And you might early on, and you might very well struggle. But again, if you're at the very least, wanting to be the man or woman that God's called you to be, your thinking and your mental abilities should be impacted, and they should be growing, and you should be focusing on pure thoughts and keeping your mind in the right place, taking every thought captive. What growth has taken place in your mind? And then the last area is physical. So behavioral, self-care, nutrition, exercise, medications, wellness. Our physical health matters so much in our recovery. The way you take care of your body, the food that you eat, the exercise, right? Just the amount of sleep and rest that you get. All these things are so critical in your recovery. Are you treating your body well? Because I know, in the past when I felt sick, and especially before my recovery, but when I felt sick, when I felt stressed, when I felt those kinds of physical, those things you actually feel in your body, those have been moments of potential. Those have been moments of not potential, actual temptation for me. And so I had to really realize my physical, be aware of my physical state of being and how I was doing in the moment. And so physically, what progress have you made? So these are areas that these aren't areas where you got to get them all right overnight, right? This isn't drive-through recovery. This isn't even, you got to get them all right in a week or 2 weeks or a month. This is a long-term journey of charting your progress in a better way. And I thank Jeff for that. And I'm trusting that it's okay that I use that. But just a little snippet from a workbook. I encourage you to go get that on Amazon to check out Jeff's workbook there. But so chart your progress in a better way and really monitor what areas what growth takes place in those areas. What progress have you made in each of these areas? Again, emotional, relational, spiritual, sexual, mental, and physical. And if you missed the definitions, go back and listen to them again, what thoughts are there. But again, we're talking about milestones the next couple weeks. And I want to talk more specifically next week about, we're going to go back to Jeff's book here, kind of look into the idea of what what specific milestones we should be looking at in recovery from pornography addiction, from sexual addiction. So I hope you'll check that out. Hope you'll come back to the Purity for Life podcast this next week. Stay tuned to the website. Keep your eyes on all the content that is coming out. And I thank you guys so much for watching and listening this week. My name is Frank Honus, and I wish you a pure life. God bless.